I remember the night everything fell apart. It was just like any other evening. I had just finished a long day at work and was unwinding with my friends in a group chat. The conversation was lighthearted, full of jokes and memes. I was in a good mood, not expecting anything out of the ordinary, when suddenly a message popped up from Sarah, a friend of my wife, Emily. At first, I thought it was just a simple mistake. Sarah had been sending updates about a trip she'd taken recently, and in her excitement, she had sent a photo that wasn't meant for the group. I didn't think much of it until I saw her caption. It was an image of Emily and another man. The caption read, "So cute, but this is the guy she's been spending most of her time with lately. You two have got to meet soon." My stomach sank. It wasn't just a random picture. It was a photo of Emily and someone I didn't recognize, laughing together at a restaurant I knew we hadn't been to. Confused and hurt, I scrolled back through the chat, my fingers trembling. Sarah had clearly forgotten that she was posting in the group chat instead of sending the message privately to someone else. My mind raced as I tried to process what I was seeing. I tried to keep calm, but I couldn't stop myself from feeling betrayed. Emily had always been careful with her phone, often acting distant, never leaving it unattended. She always told me how much she loved me, how we were solid. But here, in black and white, was evidence of something completely different. I took a deep breath and sat for a moment, gathering my thoughts. I didn't want to confront her immediately, not until I had more details. So, I went silent in the group chat. My friends, completely unaware of what had just been revealed to me, continued with their casual banter, while I was spiraling inside. Over the next few hours, I waited. I couldn't bring myself to talk to Emily. I didn't want to start a confrontation before I knew what I was dealing with. But as the night wore on, I grew more certain. Something had been going on between them for a while. When Emily came home late that evening, I didn't say a word. I simply picked up my things, packed a bag, and walked out without a sound. I couldn't bring myself to confront her just yet. I was too broken, too angry. All I could think about was how she'd lied to my face for so long, how she'd held me close while entertaining someone else. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I went to a friend's house, and we talked for hours, but I didn't feel any better. There was no closure, no explanation. I knew deep down that it was over, even if she didn't admit it. There would be no talking it through, no more second chances. Once trust was broken, it was gone for good. The group chat message had unwittingly exposed the truth. It was all the confirmation I needed, and from that moment on, I knew I could never go back to her. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I didn't hear from Emily at all, which only confirmed what I already suspected. She wasn't sorry, not in the way I needed her to be. She wasn't frantic or worried about my absence. Instead, she was probably preoccupied with the person who had replaced me, the one who had stolen the time and affection I thought were mine. I stayed at my friend's place, trying to give myself space. There was a part of me that wanted to reach out, to get answers, but I knew better. There was nothing to say. The truth had already been laid bare. My phone buzzed with messages from Emily, but I ignored every one of them. It wasn't long before my friend suggested that I check out the messages in the group chat. At first, I hesitated. It felt too raw, like opening a wound that hadn't even begun to heal. But curiosity got the best of me. I went through the chat, scrolling back through the history. The more I read, the more disgusted I became. It wasn't just a picture. There were other hints, other comments from Sarah that made it clear this wasn't a one-time mistake. Emily had been involved with this guy for months, meeting him on trips, staying at his place when I thought she was working late, sharing moments of intimacy that she should have been sharing with me. One message stood out. Sarah had asked Emily, "So, when are you going to tell him?" I felt the air rush out of me. The thought of Emily having planned to come clean about her affair made me sick. She had already been lying to me for so long, and now she was playing games with me. It was clear she had no intention of changing anything. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misstep. It was a choice. That was the moment when I knew I had made the right decision. There was nothing left to salvage. No explanations would ever be enough to undo the hurt she had caused. I turned off my phone for a few days. I needed silence to think clearly, but the more time passed, the more peace I found in the decision to walk away. I didn't need to confront her or have some dramatic confrontation. I had been betrayed, and now it was time for me to reclaim my life. A few days later, I finally returned to my apartment to collect my things. When Emily arrived home from work, her face dropped as soon as she saw me packing. She didn't ask questions. She already knew. She didn't apologize, didn't even try to explain. Instead, she just stared at me, as if waiting for me to say something. I couldn't find the words to speak. What was there left to say? What could she possibly say that would make me feel anything other than disgust? So, I left. I took the rest of my belongings, took one last look at the place that once felt like home, and walked out without looking back. I walked away from the lies, the secrets, and the person I had thought I knew. It was painful, but it was also liberating. The weight of betrayal had been heavy on my chest for so long. But now, there was a sense of freedom, of finally being able to breathe. I wasn't tied to her or the lies anymore. From that moment on, I vowed to never settle for anything less than respect, honesty, and loyalty. I knew I deserved better, and as I moved forward, I focused on rebuilding myself, on finding peace, joy, and trust again. I walked away from the wreckage she left behind, and I never looked back. The weeks that followed were a roller coaster of emotions, but with each passing day, I found myself growing stronger. I surrounded myself with friends who offered support and comfort, people who reminded me of who I was before all of this, someone worthy of love, someone who deserved honesty. I threw myself into work, poured my energy into hobbies I had long neglected, and took time for self-care. I started running again, something I'd always enjoyed but had stopped doing when I'd been wrapped up in Emily's world. It became my therapy, my way of clearing my head. Each step on the pavement felt like a release, a symbol of moving forward, one foot in front of the other, leaving the past behind. There were moments when the pain still crept in. Late at night, when the silence was too loud, the memories of Emily and the life we had shared would haunt me. I'd find myself wondering if she ever felt guilty, if she regretted what she did. But I knew those thoughts wouldn't lead me anywhere productive. I had to focus on the present, on building a future that didn't include the betrayal I'd endured. A month later, I ran into Sarah, of all people. It was unexpected, and at first, I didn't know how to react. I had half a mind to confront her, to ask her why she hadn't warned me, why she let Emily continue her charade. But then I realized something important. I didn't need to know. Sarah wasn't the issue. The issue was Emily, and I had already walked away from her. Confronting Sarah wouldn't change anything. We exchanged a few awkward pleasantries, and Sarah could barely meet my eyes. I could tell she felt guilty, but what was there to say? I simply nodded, turned, and walked away, my heart surprisingly light. As time went on, I allowed myself to trust again, but not in the way I once had. I learned to trust myself more, to recognize my own worth, and to set boundaries that ensured I wouldn't allow anyone to get that close again without proving they were worthy of my time, my heart. Eventually, I started dating again. I was cautious at first, taking things slow. I didn't rush into anything. Didn't make the mistake of letting someone into my life too quickly. But when I met Lily, someone who was kind, honest, and funny, it felt different. There was no rush, no pressure. We took the time to really get to know each other, to build trust without the baggage of secrets or lies. Lily wasn't perfect, but she was real. She showed up when she said she would, and when things were tough, she didn't disappear. The kind of person who didn't make me feel like I had to question their loyalty. One evening, after a few months of dating, we were sitting in the park, watching the sunset. She turned to me and said, "I'm really glad we met." I smiled, feeling the warmth of the moment. "Me too," I replied. I'm glad I found someone who reminds me that trust is still possible. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. The weight of the past had faded, and I was no longer carrying the scars of betrayal. I had walked away from the lies, and in doing so, I had created space for something real, something worthy of my time and heart. Looking back, I realized that the best decision I'd ever made wasn't confronting Emily or seeking revenge. It was walking away. Walking away gave me the chance to rediscover myself, to find a life that wasn't defined by someone else's mistakes. And that was something I would never regret. I had learned the hard way that sometimes the only way to move forward is to let go and never look back. That as the months passed, life slowly started feeling like it was on track again. The ache of betrayal never truly disappeared, but it became more like a scar, still there, but not as painful, not as raw. Every day was a little easier, and every day I felt a little stronger. There were days when the loneliness crept back in, when the absence of the person I thought I would grow old with stung more than I cared to admit. But those moments were becoming fewer. Lily and I continued to build something meaningful. We were both intentional about not rushing into anything, enjoying the process of discovering each other's quirks, dreams, and fears. She didn't try to fill the emptiness left by Emily. She respected the space I needed to heal. She was a steady presence in my life, offering comfort without the weight of expectations. One weekend, Lily and I took a trip out of the city to visit a small town near the coast. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where you could hear the waves crash against the shore and the seagulls calling in the distance. As we walked along the beach, hand in hand, I realized something important. For the first time since everything had happened with Emily, I felt free. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. I wasn't haunted by the lies or the uncertainty of a past that had betrayed me. I had moved on, and in doing so, I had rediscovered a part of myself that I had almost lost, my ability to trust, to love, and to hope for the future. That night, as we sat on the porch of our little beach house watching the stars, Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm really glad we met," she said, her voice soft and sincere. I smiled, squeezing her hand. "Me too. You have no idea how much I needed this," I replied, feeling a warmth in my chest I hadn't known in years. It wasn't just the tranquility of the evening, but the calm I had found within myself. And then, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment, I realized how much I had grown. I had walked away from Emily's betrayal, from the hurt, and had chosen to embrace a life where my peace came first. The pain had been a catalyst for change, a painful but necessary chapter that had led me to a place of healing and new beginnings. It wasn't just about walking away from a relationship. It was about walking towards something better, something that was built on trust, mutual respect, and a love that wasn't tainted by lies or deceit. I had learned the importance of valuing myself, of never compromising on what I deserved, and of never settling for anything less than authenticity and loyalty. As I sat there with Lily, the weight of my past didn't feel so heavy anymore. I was no longer the person I had been in my marriage to Emily. I was someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who had learned the most important lesson of all, that true happiness doesn't come from clinging to the past, but from embracing the future one step at a time. And as the waves crashed against the shore, I realized that walking away had been the best thing I could have ever done, for myself, for my future, and for the life I was now building. I had walked away from lies, from betrayal, and from a life that wasn't mine anymore. And I had walked straight into a new beginning, where love and trust were the foundations I would build everything on.